Hey everyone, and welcome to this week's Tuesday Techniques with me, Jackie Blakemore. It's great to be here with you again today. Another crazy day for me, but that's fine. So I'll just give a bit of time to see if anyone can join. And while we do that, I'll just kind of remind you with what these sessions are all about. So the idea of doing these Tuesday techniques is to help you learn a little bit more about how to make pattern adjustments that will help improve the fit of the garments that you're making. So we take a commercial pattern piece and then we have a look at a particular fitting aspect that may help you, maybe something to help with fitting the style of the garment to your body shape and size. So we've gone through quite a few so far. So if you haven't seen those already, then be sure to go to the website somuchmorefun.co.uk. You should see the link at the bottom of the screen now. And there you'll find a tips and tricks section at the top. And on there, you'll see all of these past recordings. Also, the recordings are saved onto our Facebook page, So Much More Fun, and you can go there and have a look there as well. So if you're not able to join live, then don't worry. Join in the replay, have a look. And if you have any questions, then please ask them in the comments. I do go back and check and I do have a look. So if there's anything that you want to ask about a particular video, please do that. And I'm more than happy to answer any questions. So these technique sessions run on a Tuesday lunchtime, usually with my schedule permitting. And in the session, it's usually around sort of half an hour to 45 minutes. So just designed to be a little snapshot that you can follow along with if you want to, or you can kind of save and watch later if you need that. So in the past, we've kind of we started to work our way down the body. So we've done videos around how to lengthen and shorten a pattern piece. That's probably the first place you would start. We've also looked at how you would adjust the shoulders on a bodice, because that is somewhere where most of your garments will hang from there. So we've looked at the shoulders. We've done a full bust adjustment or a small bust adjustment, so kind of fitting the chest part. And then we've also done a narrow or wide back adjustment. That was last week's. And so today we're going to look at one of my most commonly made pattern adjustments, and that is the adjustment for a rounded back. So how would you know if you need this adjustment? Well, as you kind of stand looking in the mirror, what you might spot is if you have kind of rounded shoulders, you can't see very well because this dress is a bit camouflagey, but I have kind of quite rounded shoulders. And so my shoulders sort of sit forward from bad posture, working on a computer and doing all those kind of things. And so if I was to stand correctly, you'll notice that as I kind of push my shoulders up, that's probably more normal posture, where your shoulders are kind of slightly back and you've got quite a straight top part of the back of your spine. But that's not how my back is. And so my back is kind of a bit rounded. And so as I'm standing, my sort of shoulders come forwards. And what you'll see is if you have any photos taken from the back as well, what I've spotted is it looks like my shoulders are sort of disappearing off at the front. And so that means that I've got sort of a little bit of a rounding. I don't know if you can see very well, but a little bit of a rounding sort of in this area of my back. And it's usually within the top sort of few inches of the back. And the way that this will show itself in your kind of ready to wear garments is that you might find yourself either constantly pulling something forward and it feels like it's slipping back, or you feel like it's kind of rolling back all the time, or there is a difference in the length at the front and the back. So when you put the garment on and you try and get it comfortable, so you pull it up so it's kind of at the back of your neck, then you might spot either that the garment sort of sticks out at the back instead of hanging straight, so it kind of comes out at an angle. I'm kind of exaggerating quite a lot there, but you get the idea. So it might kind of come out at the back instead of hanging straight down. Or you might find it when you kind of get the back to sit straight, which is so you kind of push it back on your shoulders to where it's supposed to be, then the front sticks out, or the front's too short. So again, these are quite good clues to sort of tell you that the balance of the garment is off and that there isn't enough fabric to cover the kind of extra posture changes that you need kind of at the top of the back. So this isn't about the kind of width of your back or anything like that. This is really about how straight or not the sort of top of your back is, really. And there are some kind of quite serious versions of this where people are sort of quite a lot more hunched and you develop a bit more of a hump here. I think I've got a picture in this book actually of an example of that. So I don't know whether you can see this very well. But in this picture, you can sort of see this is like a typical like rounded back, and then the lady in blue has got a bit more of a hump here from more of a sort of postural change, probably maybe a medical condition, something like that. So yeah, and there are two types of ways that we can implement this change, and I'm going to show you the first one, which is probably the most common one that I use. And if you imagine, it's a bit like the time before last, when we were talking about making space for curves, really. So similar to the full bust adjustment, what we're really trying to do here is, if you imagine that the back has become rounded, so we sort of want to curve the fabric and create a nice space for the sort of shoulder and upper back to fit into. And so in doing that, we're going to end up having to add extra length to sort of go a bit further over the back of the neck. And so on the garments where they don't fit quite right, or like if you've bought ready to wear, what you might feel like is that the sort of the neckline of the garment feels quite low on your back, and you sort of feel like you want to keep pulling it forward. And that's quite a common symptom. So yeah, just try and observe your posture. Maybe set your phone on a timer and maybe take a kind of picture of yourself relaxed. Now, the other thing to note when you're taking photos is, if you're anything like me, if I know I'm having my photo taken, I will stand properly. And that kind of defeats the object, because what you want to spot is how you're standing when you're relaxed. So if you do kind of set a timer and take your photo, take one where you stand properly, and then just kind of breathe out, relax, try and jiggle your shoulders around, and then take your photo. And that will be a more true representation of your kind of how you spend your time most of the time. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. So yes, so if you have any questions as we're going through this, then please just stick them in the comments. I always love to hear from you. And so today we're going to look at making the adjustment again on, I have my trusty Colette sort of scaled down version of the back pattern here, and I've traced that off. So to make the adjustments I've got kind of a paper version, a traced off paper version of that, some scrap paper that I can use, my ruler, and a pencil or pen, a pair of scissors, and some sellotape. They're the kind of main things that we're going to use today. So the first thing that we sort of want to understand a little bit is where we need to make the adjustment. And if you make it too far down, then what you'll end up with is kind of bagging. You can't really see in the sleeves of this dress, sort of more bagging fabric here at the kind of back, the bottom part of your back, when actually where you need it is quite high up. And so if you take a tape measure, you can just kind of put that on the sort of bony part of your neck there, and then just kind of measure how far down to about the middle of your shoulder blades. I don't know whether you can see that very well, but it normally happens around the sort of shoulder blade area. So if I just sort of stick my fingers on my tape measure, and I think it should be about 3 or 4 inches. Yeah, so it's not actually very far down on the back pattern. Okay, so that's where we're going to sort of focus, around the sort of 3 to 4 inch mark. Like I say, you can, if the rounding is more at the top, it may be for you, it might be at 2 inches. You might kind of make it a bit further up than that. And so the change that we're going to make is going to involve adding a dart into the sort of shoulder seam here. And you might be thinking, oh, that I'm not sure I want that in my design. But I just wanted to show you an example. So I made this change on my Pine Cove pajamas. And so I've ended up adding, I normally have to add about 1/2 inch for my rounded back. And then I've created a dart. And if you just look at that, you can't really see, this is kind of, let me just get you representations. This is the shoulder seam, and then this is the size of the dart. So they're quite small. And it just sort of gives that bit of shaping over the shoulder so that it pulls the neck sort of into your neck as well. So that's kind of where we're going with it. Now, this is one of those kind of adjustments that once you've made the garment, you can't make this change. It requires you to slash the pattern. So you do want to be doing this at your 12 stage rather than with your finished fabric. So if you do know you need this change, then you need to do that before you actually cut out your fashion fabric. So hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so I'm just going to swap my camera over and we're going to look at doing the change. So hopefully you can see my messy desk. Here we go. Let me clear some of these things out of the way. So we've got our tape measure here. I'm going to use that in a second. Just move some of these bits. Okay, so I've got my pattern piece here. So this is my bodice, back bodice, and this is just quite a plain bodice. And really, it doesn't really matter if you've got like a two-piece garment or something like that, then we're mostly focusing on this sort of top upper section here. Okay, and so what we're going to do, if you imagine this is my bodice and this would normally go on the fold. So I just need to draw this in here. So this bit would be on the fold. So what that means is we need to keep this line straight because we need that to go onto the fold of the fabric. Okay, so that's going to be one of the objectives that we need to retain as we're doing our pattern adjustments. So the first thing we're going to do is determine where we need to make the adjustment. And what we're actually going to do is we're going to slash the pattern kind of at this point where we need to make the change. And then we're going to add some length. But we don't need to add length into the armhole. The armhole is going to fit fine. Where we need it is kind of in this bit of the centre back and kind of into the shoulder. So what we're going to do is work out how far down we're going to draw our first line. And that's based on that measurement that we took. So if yours is quite high, then you might only want 2 inches. For me, it was 4 inches, but this is a scaled down pattern. So I'm going to do it about, I'm going to just make the change about here. And then you're going to draw a line that's at right angles to your centre back, which is this fold line here. So I'm just going to line up my lovely see-through ruler, and then I'm just going to draw a line across there. Okay, so that's our first line. Hopefully you can see that. Maybe I'll just highlight that in this blue pen to make it a little easier. Okay. So I'd love to know as well in the comments, you know, is this a change that you have to make, or, you know, have you had a problem? Have you tried it? Have you done this as well? So let me know. Okay, so then the second line that we're going to draw is we're going to go up into the shoulder here. Now, there were 2 versions of this. The first is where we make the adjustment into the shoulder, and that's where if the hump isn't very large, you just got a bit of rounding, then this is the best option. For the lady that we saw in the blue outfit in the picture, where she's got much more pronounced hump, then actually you probably want to make the adjustment into the neckline. We're not going to cover that, but it's exactly the same, but you just where you draw your line is slightly different. So you draw your line here and your dart would go into the neckline, whereas here we're going to draw the line to the shoulder and it's going to go into the shoulder seam. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to do is just pick a point that is midway kind of along my shoulder seam. And then I'm going to just line up my ruler to get that at right angles there. So I'm just going to draw a line straight down from there. Okay, so that's our second line. Hopefully you can see that. Shall I just zoom this in a little bit? Maybe that might make it a bit better. Okay, so now I've got my lines drawn in, and we're going to cut our pattern piece. We're going to cut from the centre back out this way, and we're going to leave a hinge at this point here. And then we're going to cut down from the shoulder seam down, and we're going to leave a hinge here. Okay. And if you've watched the full bust adjustment, it's going to be a similar kind of jiggling of the little parts of the pattern piece just to get our adjustment, but it will make more sense in a second. So I'm going to cut across here. Do that now. And then I'm going to cut down from the shoulder because this is where we're going to add our dart to give us that nice shaping into the shoulder. Okay, so you should have something that looks a bit like that. Yeah, so I just seen a comment from Carl saying he's never thought about this adjustment, but it would make sense after all the years in childcare. So yes, if you're carrying lots of children around and leaning over and doing stuff like that, then it definitely makes a difference. Okay, so with this adjustment now, what we're trying to do is add some length, like we did with the bust adjustment, so that we get more fabric to go over here. Okay, but we also want to retain the kind of shape of the garment. So what we're trying to do is create a dart that will then form, you know, kind of into the shoulder seam, and depending on how big the adjustment is, obviously will affect how big the dart is that's created. And And again, also depending on where you put this line, so probably I could have moved this over a little bit here. So you might want to play around with the positioning here to minimize the impact of the dart as well. So I'm just going to start to add my, I'm just going to start to add my distance here and stick my bit of paper in behind it. So I'm going to put a piece of paper, let's use this piece. So you can see now my pattern pieces have come apart, but that's okay. I'll stick them back together in a second. Okay, so what we want to do is let's stick this big piece down first so that that doesn't move around. And then depending on how big an adjustment you need to make. Now, it doesn't actually take as much as you think. So I would say probably the maximum I would really try and adjust this maybe, I don't know, 3/4 to an inch, but that's going to make quite a big change and you're going to end up with quite a big dart. If you're going to do that, then you might be better doing the dart into the, closer into the neckline actually. And that will make it easier to make the adjustment here. But I would say, so I'm just going to do about, I don't know, 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch. So I tend to do, like I say, for me, about 1/2 inch works really well. It might be a bit of trial and error to start with. The other thing that you can do, if I just change the pattern, the camera back, sorry. So the other thing that you can do, and I've done this on a few of my toiles, is I don't know how much I need to adjust it by. So what I do is I just put a slash in the fabric, kind of as we've drawn it in on that picture. I just literally just cut the fabric in a straight line across where the shoulder blades would be, but not through the leaving the fabric attached kind of at the armhole. And then I put it on. And then I get it comfortable and just move it up and down a little bit. And sometimes by doing that and then taking a photo, you can see how big or small you need that change to be as well. So it might give you some kind of guide. You could also just pin another piece of fabric in and just try different kind of distances. Pin it. If you're fitting on yourself, it's a bit easier when you're fitting with somebody else. But if you're fitting on yourself, put the bit of fabric in, allow an adjustment, pin it and then try it on and see if that's enough or you need a bit more. So again, that's another way. Slashing and wearing the fabric can be really helpful because it can give you quite a few clues as to whether you're making the adjustment in the right place and it's made the difference that you were looking for. So I just wanted to share that with you. So let's go back to our pattern. Okay, so on here now, we need to line up our centre back. So I'm just going to draw that on first as my sort of reference point. So I'm just going to draw my straight line there. And then you're going to mark above your existing kind of cut line, you're going to mark how far you want to go up. So I'm just going to do 1/4 inch here. So you just create your line there. Okay, and now your pieces will be joined. I could stick mine back together, but I'm just going to wing it a little bit. And what you want to try and get is that this lies flat sort of in this area here. And then this goes out to where your centre line is. Okay, so you can pin this piece down once you've done that. Do that there. And then that will be joined here. And then you can just kind of pin that piece there. Okay, so just pin that down. So you'll have a hinge here at this point here, you hinge here, and now you've got your extra length that's going to give you that distance over your over the rounded back. And what you'll have noticed is that now we've got a dart that's formed in this space here. And so the last thing that we want to do is just work out how we would need to cut kind of near the dart. So I'm just going to trim this off here. We're just going to do what's called truing the pattern so that you can sort of work out how you need to cut your dart. Now, if this is really small and you've only got to make a small adjustment, then you can potentially, and the way that I used to make this adjustment before I found this method was just to make the slash and then angle this up without doing this dart. And then, sort of try and, depending on, how far this was from the centre line, I would just leave that in there. But it can make it a bit baggy at the centre back. So that's why I prefer this method now. This is the one that I use more commonly. Move that out of the way. Okay, so what you can do now, I'm just going to sellotape these bits down as well. So with this kind of dart, you just need to decide where you want the fabric, which direction you want the fabric to go. And I would probably press it so that it goes out towards the shoulder. So that means that my fold, if I fold this over, is going to go this way. So, oops. So I'm going to fold this edge. You can see that. And then I'm going to just fold out my dart so that I can get a sense of matching that up. Okay, so I'm literally just folding it, and then if you can see, the paper is actually coming back towards the armhole in this direction. And then all I need to do is, if I use my scissors and cut a straight line for the shoulder seam, oops, there we go. What that does is create my dart shape. You can see it goes down and up slightly. And again, depending on the size of the dart, it will either go stick up or it will come down like this one. And then you can just trim off any excess. So if we just trim these bits here, back to the armhole, and then trim around your neckline. And hey presto, there is your back adjustment. So what this will give you now is an extra ½ inch here. And then with the dart zone, can you see now it's starting to create a curve that will go nicely? If I just fold this out, you can start to see how that would curve over any kind of hump or extra that you've got here. So again, looking at this is kind of assuming a profile where the extra flesh, if you like, is in this region here. If yours is different, then, you know, have a look and see where you want to draw this line. It doesn't really matter. Just make it vertical kind of wherever it is. And then you can create your dart and sew your dart at that point. And then it will match wherever, you know, the extra flesh is. If yours is kind of more in the center of your back, then do this line here and take the dart into the neck. You know, and that will really help. If you do that, I was thinking if you needed to make any adjustments to any of the pattern pieces, but actually once this is sewn out, you know, it won't really affect the shoulder seam because that's going to have the same length. And the same if you put a dart that goes into the neckline, you don't have to adjust any neck facings or anything like that, because after you've sewn the dart out, you won't notice that, you know, it'll still be the same length as it was originally. So yeah, so that's you know, that's as easy as it is. And my mum says a great adjustment process to stop the back of any garments ending up looking like they're too short at the back. And yes, I am in this example, I'm making the adjustment to the shoulder. But again, look at where the flesh is on your body. Look at where your hump is, if that's a good way of describing it. Just going to swap this over. So for me, actually, the sort of extra hump is just kind of on the edge of my sort of shoulder part here. So it is more common for me. If yours is more rounded towards the center of your back, if it's more spinal, you know, kind of if you're kind of more curved here, then yeah, the neck going into the neckline, you know, will suit you better and give you a nicer finish. And then in terms of your construction, so I generally would sew all my darts first, and then just assemble your garment as you would normally. So, and you'll have that nice bit of extra fabric here, and it won't affect, we haven't affected the length of the armhole, so it won't affect the sleeve. We haven't affected the length of the side seam, so it won't affect the overall garment. What it does just affect is this length down the centre back, which then will balance out with the side seam to make it look more level. So hopefully that's helped. And if you've got any, like I say, if you're watching this in the replay, then let me know and how you get on. Give it a try. If you want to try this example, there is a free pattern that I'm just using in these tutorials, which is the Colette, which is the seam work sorbetto top, and you can print that out as a PDF. So yeah, until next time. In the next session, we're going to be talking about something else that I can't remember. Let me just have a quick look and see what we're going to be doing. But also, if you've got any requests of things, specific things, so I've had a few from a few of you that I have added to the list, and I will be publishing those as well. So, you know, if you just want to maybe do a design detail change, or other things like that, then let me know and we can see about doing those. Yeah, so if you're not sure about the schedule, then there is a post on the website with the Tuesday techniques. I think I might have a link to that here actually. Let's see if we've got that. Yeah. So this link here, don't know whether you can read that, it's quite small. But yeah, so the Tuesday techniques, and the next one is going to be, sleeves. So next time we're going to be looking at a full upper arm sleeve adjustment. So if you are like Billy Biceps like me, I carry a lot of my weight sort of in my upper arm, and that can mean that some of the patterns I think have got quite close fitting sleeves, particularly some of the woven patterns. And so if that's an area that you've struggled with, then be sure to try and tune in next time or watch out for the replay. But thank you very much for those that joined me live. Always lovely to see you, and I look forward to catching you again soon. Bye for now.